Hello, my name is Glen Alexis. I'm the founder and CEO of MRA Digital, and I am the creator and inventor of organic intelligence, and I'm going to demonstrate that to you today. Okay, so what's the agenda? Well, the first thing I'll do, I'll tell you about organic intelligence, what it is, where it came from, and also give you a brief tutorial about it. Afterwards, we'll demonstrate an organic intelligence AND gate, which is a logical gate that doesn't require any power, external power whatsoever. Then after the AND gate, then we'll do a demonstration of the organic intelligence OR gate. Also, it doesn't require any external power. Then, next step will be, we'll build an organic intelligence inverter or NOT gate and also demonstrate it. Then we'll do another demonstration with wireless communication using organic intelligence. In that demonstration, we'll show wireless communication without any power to the transmitter or receiver, and when the receiver receives the signal, it'll upscale the signal by a factor of 3. After the wireless, we'll talk about the demonstration units, the evaluation units, the free evaluation units that we have available to select institutions worldwide. And then I'll go over some questions and answers of questions that I've often been asked. Okay, so let's get to it. So what is organic intelligence? Well, in a nutshell, organic intelligence is the natural, infinite intelligence that naturally exists in the unmanifested, spiritual, and the physical dimensions, the I am. That's basically what organic intelligence is. It is really unmanifested energy, but it manifests itself in the spiritual realms and the physical realms. Now, organic intelligence, when it's manifested in the physical world in different forms, and it expresses itself as fractals. These fractals come in various shapes, size, geometries, and you can see them all around in nature. You can see them on pine cones, you can see them in butterflies, you can even see them in the crop circles that's in the UK and other places around the world. You can see them in the pyramids, you can see them everywhere, even on your own body, because you are this, in fact. Then we have what's called organic geometry. Organic geometry is what we do when we build things from the base, from those fractals. The fractals, you could think of them like transistors. And when you take transistors and you put them together in a various configurations, you can create all sorts of things. Like as we see today, there's many, many different types of technologies that are created using transistors. Well, organic intelligence, the base, when you put them together into certain geometric models or patterns, you create what's called organic geometry. And the geometry, they serve as a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual world. That's really the only purpose of the geometry. But the geometries, when they are made, they actually have a certain resonance frequency, and it's that resonant frequency that allows it to connect to the spiritual world, to its counterpart that's in the spiritual world. Now, with organic geometry, we actually create, let's call it programmable energy fields, and they're also functional. Just like we can create software and program the energy that and that energy exists in hardware. So what the hardware does, it actually changes the form, the configuration of the energy, of the electricity within the confines of whether it's a chip or resistor or capacitor, inductor, etc. It changes the shape of it to create a function. Well, organic intelligence is basically the same thing, but instead of using physical matter, we use energy or spirits. and these are an energy field that exists in the spiritual world, which is what's now being called the quantum field. And with all organic intelligence technology, there's no external power needed, because organic intelligence, the geometry that uses that's built by organic intelligence, it's coherent. And because it's coherent, it's naturally in resonance. And because it's naturally in resonance, it has zero impedance. That's the definition of being in resonance. You have no impedance. You are one with yourself. And when any system that is one with itself is coherent, and anything that is coherent is itself. So you don't need any energy to be yourself, because you are yourself. So that's what, in a nutshell, the different stages of organic intelligence. So you have the organic intelligence, which is the unmanifested energy that exists in the unmanifested realms. That unmanifested realms, or the unmanifested energy, the I am, it manifests itself into infinite fractals of different forms and geometries in the physical world that you can see in nature. Everywhere you look, you will see it. You can take those the organic intelligent base unit, and you could think of them like transistors, and then you can create higher level models of geometry, which is then we call organic geometry. So you can take several organic base units, combine them together in a certain way, in a fashion, and then you can create a higher level geometry, which actually will create a functional energy field in the spiritual realms, and that energy field will do work and bring the data back. Here's an example of organic base units. Now remember, the base units are like a transistor. You can use them to build larger blocks of energy fields, more complex energy fields. Now, as you can see, there's 3 different base units that I have shown you. Now, even though they look completely different, they are actually exactly the same, because the infinite expresses itself in many different forms, but the signature is still the same. So these are base units. They have the same functionality and same properties, regardless of their size, their shape, etc. Now, because I've shown 3 different ones here, of course, in nature, they're infinite. It just depends on your imagination, what it is and how you want to manifest it. Each one can be used depending on the end application. Certain applications you may want to use the one in the middle, because it lends more to what it is that you're trying to create, versus the very first one. It may serve another application better. So it just depends on the application, which one of the base units you will use to build a larger system. Now, you don't have to stick with one. You can intermingle them. You can mix them. You can say, okay, a portion of this system I'm going to build is going to have some of number 1, it's going to have some of number 2, and a little bit of a number 3. You know, it's just basically up to the person who's creating the actual geometry, how they see it in their mind. Here's some example of OI geometries. These are more complex. The first one that you see is a wireless transceiver. Even though it's 2, but it's actually it's 1, but it's made in a different way, such that it can receive energy that's being sent out at a certain resonance. But not only does it receive, it can actually perform operations on the energy as well. This particular one will receive energy, and it will multiply the energy by a factor of 3. And it's very, very, very difficult to do that with semiconductors. You will have to have maybe an FPGA, PLLs, and all kind of circuitry with power and this and that and software to upscale, to upsample a signal. Of course, and you still have to power it. This works with no power whatsoever, and you will see a demonstration of this where we will send in a signal that's about 7 megahertz, and it will upsample the 7 megahertz to 21 megs and non-line of sight at various distances. This particular transceiver, if we made it another size with another configuration, we'll be able to send data. You can send data actually across the galaxy if you wanted to. It just depends on the side, because it's based on resonance. And at a certain resonance, you basically become at a certain scale of the universe. And when you're at a certain resonance, then you can transmit data across the universe. You can transmit data across the planet. You don't need towers with antennas, repeaters, and various things like that, because that's how the universe works. This transceivers, how it works, it actually doesn't transmit the information in the space that we see here. It transmits the information via the spiritual world. So, for example, if you have one that's, I'm just picking a number right now, let's say it was 5 gigahertz resonance, and you had one that's in your home and the receiver was, let's say, 100 miles away, and you apply a signal into one, on the other side you would receive the signal. And how it works is that this doesn't really propagate, the signals don't propagate in space and time in the physical plane. What happens is that both signals are connected, both units are connected to the spiritual plane. And when you send a signal in one, it actually goes to the spiritual plane, but because both of them are connected to the spiritual plane, they are one. They are one unit. Doesn't matter how far separated they are the same unit. Because they are in resonant with each other and they are coherent, they become one unit. So even if you're across the galaxy, you will still be able to send data. Now, of course, the data transmission distance, if you want to call it that, is based on the resonance. So if you want to transmit data at a very long distance, let's say, for example, if you wanted to transmit across the universe, you will have to get what is the fundamental resonant frequency of the universe, and then you'll have to use that frequency, basically. So if you want to transmit across this planet, that's easy. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 50 gigahertz, 60 gigahertz. Definitely in the terahertz, that will definitely works, because at the terahertz, you're at the atomic level. So that's how it would work. So I'll demonstrate that, a wireless transmission on the table. Of course, it's going to be at a low frequency, it's 7 meg, but the upsample would be to 21 megs, and the distance probably will be around 2 feet. This other unit that you see here, it's a more complex organic intelligence geometry. This one is it's a tool that I made for myself, actually. I had to make myself a tool to create the geometries. So it's a tool, and it allows me to test various things while I was creating my logic. I don't use it that much now, but it was the tool I made initially to help me create the geometries that you see, that you will see demonstrated. But it has many other purposes. It's just up to my imagination of what it is I want to create. So now let's talk about the stack down. And the reason why I call it stack down is because in the universe, everything grows in, nothing grows out. There's no such thing as out. Everything grows within. So at the very top level, at the highest dimension, you have what I would call the unmanifested realms, the void. And that's where the unmanifested energy itself exists. And it's a single point. It's a point infinitely small that doesn't even exist, but it's there. The energy itself is unmanifested. It's only the will of the energy that exists. So the energy doesn't exist. It's the potential that is what's the organic intelligence. It's the potential of something. That's what exists. That is the only thing that exists in the universe, is the potential of something to exist. That potential exists. And that is what the spirit is. The potential for something to exist must exist. And therefore all things exist. So that's what OI is. And we call that the spirit, or the void, or the unmanifested. That potential, that spirit, that unmanifested, it manifests itself into base units. And that base unit, the infinite ability of that potential, manifests itself or expresses itself in infinite forms. And those forms Here we call them fractals. In this planet, they're called fractals. And fractals are self-repeating shapes that goes from infinity to infinity. A hologram is a fractal. It repeats forever. If you take a piece of a holographic film and you cut a tiny piece off of it, the same picture, the entire picture still exists on that on the tiny piece of the film, because it's a self-repeating fractal. So that's what the base units are. Now, from the base units, we take the base units and we build a larger symbol, a larger geometry from the base units. And that geometry basically makes up the thought that the person or the creator, the person having a thought, is expressing. They have to express their thought in a geometry. And when they express their thought in that geometry, then that geometry, because it's resonance and it's coherent, it is linked with the spirit of the thought. And a thought is energy. Thoughts exist in what we call the spiritual plane. Science call that the quantum field, where only energy exists. And it doesn't matter what the name is, but only energy exists there, and that energy is manifested when you put your awareness on it. So that's what the OI geometry does. It provides a bridge from the physical world into the spiritual world, or the quantum field, what they call it, and allows you to manipulate the energy fields in the quantum world. So when you take the OI, which is the unmanifested, the I am, when you take the base units, which is the base manifestation of the OI in the physical world, fractals, and then when you couple those and then you make a higher level geometry of that, then you basically have OI geometry, the body. So you could think of OI as the spirit, the base unit, the soul, and the geometry as the body. But now you have a body, but you still need to energize that body. And that's where the resonant frequency come in, because that body now is a geometry, and all geometries has a resonant frequency. So when you apply the resonant frequency of the geometry to the OI geometry, then it comes alive. That's considered like the breath of life. And when you put that in there, now you have the ability to do work, or have that energy field do something. And that's basically how it works. Now, the organic intelligence, or what we will call the spirit, the base unit, what we will call the soul, and the geometry is what we call the physical body, they're one thing. They're actually the same thing. But they're the same thing manifesting or operating at different levels of resonance. They're all the same thing. Just like ice, water, and the gaseous form of water, they're all the same thing. They're all water. But each one of those things is they're at a different state of resonance. Ice is at a lower state of vibration. Water is at a higher state of vibration than the ice. And the gas is at even a higher state of vibration of the water. So you could think of the OI, the natural OI, as the gas. The base unit is the water. It takes different shapes, different geometries. And then when you bring it down even more, then you could take the water and you could make the ice, which is the geometry. It's a lower vibration. And that's basically the organic technology, organic intelligence, the stack down. And the reason why it's a stack down, because everything grows within. Nothing is outside. There's no such thing as outside. Everything is inside. We perceive that it is on the outside, but there's no such thing as outside. It's only inside. And it grows within the inner dimensions. So now we'll do a demonstration of the OI AND gate.